My name is Michael Vega, and if you asked me what my life used to be like before 3 days ago, I'd tell you it was a quiet, predictable kind of hell. A hell I accepted willingly because I believed it was built out of love. Sexism. For 6 years, my world revolved around one person, my wife, Emily. We were married for 27 years, and for most of that time, she was the kind of woman who could light up a room just by walking into it. She was a dancer, graceful, magnetic, full of laughter and movement. She used to say that her body was her instrument, her way of translating emotion into motion. I was the opposite, quiet, methodical, a bookkeeper who found comfort in numbers. Somehow we balanced each other. Then, one night, everything changed. Emissions. A call at 2 a.m. shattered the rhythm of our lives. "Your wife has been in an accident," the voice on the phone said. I still remember how my heart froze mid-beat. They told me a truck had run a red light as she was crossing the street. By the time I reached the hospital, they said she was stable, but paralyzed from the neck down. The next few months were a blur of tears, confusion, and medical jargon. I sold my car to pay the bills. I converted our living room into a small hospital space with a mechanical bed and portable bathing equipment. The doctor said there was a slim chance of recovery, but hope is a strange thing. It clings even when reason tells you to let go. That was 6 years ago. Shameful. Since then, every single day started the same way. I'd wake up before dawn, my body aching from sleeping in that damn armchair beside her bed. I never moved her to a separate room. I wanted to be there if she needed anything. Every sound, every sigh, every blink. I learned to interpret all of it. "Good morning, my love," I'd whisper each day. Even when she couldn't answer, I said it anyway. It became a ritual, the first line of a conversation that never really existed. By 6 o'clock, I'd start heating water for her bath. The doctor had told me that cleanliness was essential for bedbound patients, to prevent infections. So I followed every instruction with almost religious precision. I would test the water temperature with my wrist until it felt just right. Not too hot, not too cold. I'd lay out the soft towels, her favorite lavender soap, and prepare her for a full wash. "Tuesday," I'd tell her. "Full bath day, remember?" Strengthening. Sometimes I'd get a blink in response. One blink meant yes. 2 blinks meant no. It wasn't much, but it was all we had. I spoke to her constantly, not just because the doctor said it was good for her mental health, but because I was terrified of the silence. I used to tell myself that her eyes still sparkled, that behind the paralysis, she was still there. I told myself that love could survive anything, that I could survive anything. But truthfully, I was breaking. Slowly, quietly, in ways I didn't even notice. Arbitrarily. The worst part about caring for someone who can't move is that you start to forget that you exist too. My world shrank to the size of that room. The beeping of the oxygen monitor, the smell of antiseptic, the rhythmic hiss of the ventilator at night. My meals were whatever I could eat in 5 minutes. My clothes smelled of soap and hospital pads. My friends stopped visiting after the first year. People don't know what to say to a man who never leaves his wife's bedside. Still, I held on. Beth, I thought, demanded sacrifice. And then came that morning. It started like any other. I woke to the faint hum of the oxygen machine and the gray light of dawn creeping through the blinds. Emily was lying exactly where I left her, her hair freshly brushed from the night before. She looked peaceful, or at least, I thought she did. "Armstrong, sweetheart," I said, forcing a smile. "Today's going to be a good day." No blink. No response. Challenges. That wasn't unusual. Sometimes she was slow to wake. I went ahead with the routine, checking her pulse, adjusting her pillow, cleaning the small sore on her shoulder. Everything was fine. Ordinary. Halfway through the bath, the phone rang. Trembling. Her sister. "Good morning, Michael. How's my sister today?" "She's fine. We're doing her morning bath," I replied, balancing the phone between my shoulder and ear as I gently washed Emily's arms. "That's good. Listen, Linda continued. Her thought was casual. I'll stop by this afternoon. I need to talk to you about something important. What about? I'd rather tell you in person. It's about my parents' house, the paperwork we talked about months ago. All right, I said, frowning. We'll be waiting. When I hung up, I turned back to Emily and froze. She was staring at me, not blinking, staring. Her eyes wide, unblinking, filled with something I hadn't seen before. Fear. Emily, I asked, carefully wiping her face, are you in pain? One blink for yes, two for no. Too slow, pain. Then what is it? I asked softly, leaning closer. No response, just that same terrified look. And for a brief moment, I thought I saw her eyes flick toward the phone, then back to me. I shook it off. My mind was playing tricks again. After 6 years of sleep deprivation, your brain becomes a cruel storyteller. I finished drying her, dressed her in clean pajamas, and made breakfast. Oatmeal with honey and orange juice, blended to the consistency her doctors recommended. As I was feeding her, there was a loud knock on the door. 3 sharp, impatient bangs. I sighed. Who is it? It's David, came the voice from the other side. Emily's cousin. I need to talk to you, Michael. I rolled my eyes. David, the opportunistic cousin who always had some new business idea. Alone here, a can't-miss investment there. Every time he visited, I ended up losing money or patience. Give me a minute, I called back. Immigration. Wipe Emily's mouth gently and whispered, I'll be right back. When I opened the door, David pushed his way inside like he owned the place. He was dressed in a sharp gray suit, his hair slicked back, a heavy cologne cloud following him. Michael, you look terrible, he said, wrinkling his nose as if pitying me. Can we speak in private? Emily's having breakfast, I said flatly. Say what you have to say. He hesitated, then stepped closer, lowering his voice. I know you've been struggling financially, he began. Linda told me you're behind on mortgage payments. I have an opportunity. David, I interrupted, clenching my jaw. I've told you before, I'm not interested in your opportunities. You're a proud man, Michael, but pride doesn't pay the bills. I could reply. I heard a sound from behind me, a faint clatter, metal on tile. I turned around. Emily's feeding spoon was on the floor. My heart skipped a beat. I rushed back into the living room, half expecting to find her choking or gasping, but she was fine. Motionless, as always. Only her eyes followed me. What, are you okay? I asked. Did you drop that? Relinquished. Yes. For the first time in 6 years, I felt the air leave my lungs. How? I whispered. No answer. David stepped into the room, glancing at her with casual disinterest. She looks the same as ever. You sure all this effort is worth it? Get out, I snapped, but didn't argue. As he walked out, he muttered something under his breath that I didn't quite catch. Something about sooner than you think. I didn't realize then how much that sentence would haunt me. That afternoon, Linda came by. She looked anxious, her smile tight. You're looking tired, Michael, she said, placing a hand on my shoulder. I'm fine, I replied. What's this about the house papers? She hesitated. It's complicated. I might need Emily's signature on some documents. I thought maybe we could… Paranoia? I repeated. Linda, she can't even hold a pen. I know, she said quickly. But there are legal options. You can sign on her behalf as her caretaker. I just need her to confirm. 1 blink for yes, 2 for no. I finished for her, my tone icy. Lindsay smiled faintly. Exactly. I turned to Emily. Your sister wants me to sign something for the old house. Do you agree? Emily blinked once. Yes. But her eyes said no. Something in me twisted. Are you sure? I asked again. 2 blinks. No. Linda frowned. What's that supposed to mean? She said, no, I said firmly. Linda looked flustered. Michael, maybe you misunderstood. You know how hard it is for her to constrain. Said no, I repeated. There was silence. Crimson. Finally, Linda sighed, forcing a smile. Fine, another time then. When she left, I noticed Emily's breathing had quickened. I sat beside her, holding her hand. "It's okay," I whispered. "I won't let anyone pressure you." For the first time, she blinked once, slowly, deliberately, and a tear rolled down her cheek. I didn't know what it meant then, but now I think it was guilt. That night, after cleaning up and checking her vitals, I sat in the dark beside her bed. The house was silent except for the faint hum of the oxygen machine. I closed my eyes, exhausted. I must have drifted off for a few minutes, because when I woke up, the room felt wrong. The light was on. Shields. I could have sworn I'd turned it off. Emily, she was looking right at me. Her eyes were open wide, locked on mine, full of terror. "Emily?" I whispered. "What's wrong?" "Nelson." No blinks, no response, just pure, silent fear. Then, faintly, I heard a sound. Outed, a creak. From the hallway. I froze. We lived alone. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. I stood, heart pounding, and stepped into the hallway. Nothing. Just shadows. I checked the doors, the windows, all locked. I told myself I was imagining it. When I came back, Emily was still awake. Her eyes darted toward the front door, then back to me. I didn't understand what she was trying to say. Not yet. But that was the first night I started to doubt the story I had lived for 6 years. That felt like maybe, just maybe, my wife wasn't as helpless as she seemed. It all began with a cough. A small, irritating cough that I had dismissed at first, thinking it was just the dry air in our apartment. But by the third day, Emily's breathing had changed. Shallow, uneven, slightly wheezing. She tried to hide it, as always, blinking once when I asked if she was uncomfortable. One blink. Yes. That was enough. I knew it was serious. I decided we had to go to the hospital. I called the local clinic and they said to come immediately. My heart pounded the entire drive there. The streets of our quiet Midwestern city looked almost surreal through the windshield, the sun reflecting off the pavement as if mocking the dread building inside me. I wheeled Emily through the automatic doors, clutching her hand gently, careful not to jostle her too much. The staff looked at me with polite curiosity, familiar with caregivers like me who had been committed to their patients for years. I knew what they were thinking. Poor man, 6 years of this. And yet in my chest I felt nothing but fear. Something was wrong. Exam room. Emily's vitals were taken immediately. Blood pressure, oxygen, saturation, temperature. Everything seemed normal, almost too normal. The nurse, a kind woman in her mid-30s named Clara, gave me a reassuring smile. "We'll take good care of her, Mr. Vega," she said. Disregard, but my instincts screamed that today wouldn't be routine. I had learned to trust my instincts over 6 years of caregiving. Every subtle change in her breathing, every hesitation in her blink had been a signal. And today, something was off. The doctor arrived shortly after. Dr. Benson, a man in his 50s, with gray-streaked hair and a calm demeanor, came into the room with a clipboard in hand. He ran through the usual questions, his voice steady but tinged with something I couldn't identify. Worry? Hesitation? After a few minutes, he stopped writing, looked up at me, and his expression changed. His calm, professional facade crumbled. He stared at me for what felt like an eternity. Then, in a voice so low I almost didn't hear it, he said, "Mr. Vega, call the police." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Excuse me?" He swallowed, visibly struggling. "Call the police, now." I laughed nervously, thinking it was some kind of joke. I don't understand. Why? What happened? Is Emily?" Shook his head slowly. "I can't explain here. Not fully. But you need to step outside and call them. Immediately." My hand started trembling. "Step outside? Doctor, please tell me what's going on." He didn't answer. Instead, he left the room, closing the door softly behind him. My stomach churned. I turned to Emily. Her eyes were wide, not just normal wide, panicked, confused. For the first time in 6 years, she didn't just blink in response. She stared at me, fully alert, fully present, and terrified. A cold realization began to seep into me, slow and horrifying. Something was horribly, impossibly wrong. I stumbled into the hallway, dialing 911 with shaky hands. The operator's calm voice was almost surreal compared to the chaos in my head. "Yes, my wife. I think something's wrong. Please, send the police." Within minutes, 2 officers arrived. They were professional, but their eyes betrayed suspicion. "Mr. Vega," one said, "we need to ask you some questions about your wife's condition." I felt my chest tighten. "Questions? I've been her caregiver for 6 years. What's going on?" Motioned for me to step outside the room. I obeyed, leaving Emily behind for the first time in years. I had never felt this kind of fear before. Not for her, not for myself. "Sir, we need to know about her medical history," one officer began. "Has she ever been able to move on her own?" I blinked at him, confused. "Of course not. She's been paralyzed for 6 years. The officer exchanged a glance with his partner. "Have you ever seen her moving?" My stomach dropped. "What are you implying?" They were careful not to answer directly. Instead, they asked me to provide all her medical records, insurance documents, and any correspondence with her doctors. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hand over the files. Meanwhile, inside the room, Emily sat upright in bed, fully upright. I didn't see her at first. I only heard the faint scrape of metal against the floor. When I turned, my heart stopped. She was standing, slowly, deliberately, moving around the room like a normal person. My knees buckled. I grabbed onto the back of a chair to steady myself. "Emily?" My voice cracked. She looked at me, blinking slowly, almost deliberately. There was a calculation in her eyes, a cold precision I had never seen before. She wasn't just standing, she was aware, fully aware. The officers entered the room behind me, their eyes widening as they saw her. "Sir, is she?" one of them whispered. I couldn't speak. Over the next hour, the hospital turned into a whirlwind of activity. Doctors, nurses, police officers, all trying to make sense of what they had witnessed. Emily moved with precision, answering questions verbally, a skill I had never known she had. They discovered there were no medical records confirming her paralysis, no accident report, no therapy notes, no surgical records, nothing. Everything I had been told for 6 years was a lie. My mind spun. The calls, the visits, the caregiving, the sacrifices, all a meticulously crafted illusion. Detectives began asking about her daily routine, her finances, the family members involved. Linda, her sister, and David, her cousin, both had visited regularly, often asking questions I hadn't thought to question. Theft like the floor had dropped from beneath me. 6 years. 6 years of devotion, of sleepless nights, of every ounce of energy poured into someone who had been faking her condition the entire time. Ria calmly in the corner, watching us. She didn't deny anything. She didn't explain. She just looked at me with that same, terrifying calm. The detectives spoke quietly among themselves, and I overheard fragments of their conversation. Identified fraud, financial exploitation, years of caregiving used as cover. The room spun. I felt like I was drowning, and then Dr. Benson pulled me aside. "Michael, we didn't see this coming. I'm sorry. We should have questioned her sooner. But whatever you do, don't confront her alone. Let the authorities handle it." I nodded, though my body felt frozen. How could I even begin to process this? The woman I had loved, the woman I had sacrificed my life for, had been lying to me for 6 years. As we left the hospital, Emily didn't resist. She walked beside me, smiling faintly, as if everything was perfectly normal. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to demand an explanation. But I didn't. Because something deep inside told me this was only the beginning. The cracks die het hebben was vagged, calculated, and called, and I had only idea how deep it was. I returned to our plug the bagel equipping that the hospital gave, the bags, supplies, all reminders of the life I had been living. And bliss, only getting the dog, staring at the ceiling, trying to exactly
My phone got a quick message from Linda and David, vague, apologetic, and warning it not to do anything rash. Blinked. Plaguing. I didn't sleep. I just couldn't. Every memory of 6 years flashed before me. The chemical bags, the whispered conversations, the tears, the log, all carefully manipulated. And I sat there trembling. I realized something terrifying. I didn't know who Langley really was. Late gone. But she had go actually the trucks and again. And the exploding adult like a global coat, the collapsing single exalted to power to uncover the Bangor secret life with a like a cage. They slight thing little tank the septic soap. The baggers looked like a lick high up the hard little bag with blood flowing. Stared at deadly. The sack clerk for being a coat. I go to the blue and coach with looking at having. They could scream, cutting angles. We were stuck in my coat. Good I can find the cover. Like slice of gear, could still like a big to low retreat. The tree plays inside with the beggar play. I go to 5 tigers, old clovers. Here look at this, put the goods and you step in the clothes, loaf, put the pole of it, the inquisitors. I found both started with pay for activity, say, they'll tell the fire going for the loud, the legs and text, the something, he looked empty to the trail in the TV believe. I saw the take the paper scattered, borrowed, blues, they could for the tag policy. It had been the same or and talk to the and put it up clear decided to get in the fire they bring the a play for the 2 years over the years a to save the joy for like click hell. Learning about it, even its feeling. Learning for the please. Being located like learning to you. Being done. They slowly pay me by your being by powers in the secret of the carrier. But please pay me.
Insurance payouts. Every effort I had made to secure our home, every sleepless night worrying about money, had been for their benefit, not hers. Israel, 90 sinking emptiness, 6 years of devotion, for nothing. By mid-afternoon, I confronted Emily. I needed answers, and I needed them now. Emily, I said, my voice trembling, I know everything. Every lie, every move. Why? Why did you do this to me? She looked at me calmly, like a cat watching a mouse struggle. Did you really think you were taking care of me all these years? You weren't. You were taking care of an idea, an image you created. Turbulence. I felt bile rise in my throat. An image? You paralyzed yourself? You made me believe this. All of this. Her lips curved into a faint smile. I was alive, Michael. More alive than you ever realized. And you were blind. You wanted to see a helpless wife, so that's what I became, but only for you. Staggered back, horrified. The woman I had kissed, cared for, worshipped, had been living a secret life in plain sight. I demanded to know about the nights she had slept, the days she had rested, the moments she had been unconscious. She explained, calmly, almost proudly, that she moved freely at night, that she met people, traveled in secret, managed her finances, and even manipulated Linda and David to cover her tracks. 6 years dissolved in my mind like smoke. I remembered waking at dawn, preparing her bath, feeding her breakfast, whispering to her about our wedding, our lives. And now I understood that she heard everything, remembered everything, and used it all. I wanted to rage, to hit something, to scream, to break the room, but I couldn't, because the truth was worse than anger. It was betrayal so deep it left me hollow. The detectives arrived that afternoon, having reviewed my findings and Emily's financial trail. They explained in detail the fraud, the identity deception, the property manipulation. Shields, sir, one said gently, you were being exploited for years. It's unusual, but the evidence is clear. She's been living a double life. We recommend you do not confront her further without support. I nodded numbly. My eyes kept returning to her. She didn't flinch, didn't cry, just watched me with an unreadable calm. I spent the night going through the apartment, searching for more evidence. Hidden safes, secret letters, emails opened and deleted, photographs of her walking outside, in the park, in stores, living a normal life, all while I believed she couldn't move a finger. Dismissing the depth of her deception was staggering. Every part of my daily routine, every moment of devotion, every ache and exhaustion had been orchestrated. My reality had been a carefully constructed lie, one she maintained flawlessly. By morning, I realized something I hadn't before. I didn't know her at all. Not the real. Emily, the woman I had married, the woman I had loved, had been gone long before the accident I thought had ruined her life. And the terrifying part? She had allowed it to continue. She had allowed me to love her while she lived entirely for herself and for her family's gain. That night, I sat on the floor, staring at the old photographs of our wedding, our honeymoon, our first home. Every memory I thought I owned felt tainted, like someone had rewritten my life while I slept. I realized that for 6 years, I had been living a lie within a lie. The Emily I cared for never existed. And worse, I began to wonder, as the shadows of the room stretched long and silent, how far this deception went, and whether I would ever escape the web she had spun. The morning sun poured weakly through the blinds, but it did nothing to lighten the darkness in my mind. I hadn't slept. I couldn't. The apartment felt smaller, suffocating, filled with echoes of 6 years of devotion that had been manipulated, stolen, and weaponized against me. Emily sat in the chair across the room, serene, poised, as though she hadn't just spent 6 years faking paralysis. Her eyes, those once familiar windows to the woman I loved, now seemed sharp, calculating, dangerous. I had called the police and asked them to come with me for the confrontation. I needed answers, but I needed safety too. I wasn't sure I could handle her alone. Linda and David arrived soon after, both nervous, both trying to appear casual. Linda's smile was forced, trembling at the corners. David, always confident, carried that same smug arrogance, but even he couldn't hide the tension in his shoulders. "Michael," Linda said softly, "we can talk this out. You don't need, after." "Talk?" I snapped. 6 years, Linda. 6 years of my life. You let me believe she couldn't move, that she was helpless. And for what? Money? Property? What was it?" Trembling, her smile faltered. "It wasn't supposed to go this far. We never meant—" "Merlin." "Meant what?" I barked. "To ruin me? To ruin us?" David stepped forward, hands raised slightly as if to calm me. "Michael, you need to understand. Dismissing." "No!" I shouted. "I don't need to understand anything from either of you. I need to hear it from her. Emily, you've been living a lie for 6 years. You've stolen everything from me. My love, my time, my life. Why?" Bellion stood slowly, her movements deliberate and controlled. Every motion reminded me that the paralysis had been a fiction, a carefully constructed act. She smiled faintly, almost amused. "You really believed that helpless wife I pretended to be?" she asked softly. "Do you realize how pathetic it made you look? How blind you were? I let you think you were saving me, while I was alive, free, and thriving." I felt my chest tighten, my vision narrowing. "Alive? You call this alive? 6 years of lying, faking, deceiving." My voice broke. "I loved you." She tilted her head, studying me with an almost clinical detachment. "You loved an illusion. You loved the idea of me being helpless. You never really saw me, Michael, and I never needed you to." Unsuccessful. The police stepped closer, but I ignored them. I couldn't stop myself. "And the money, the accounts, the papers, you, Linda, and David, every withdrawal, every transfer, you exploited me." David spoke up, trying to regain control. "Michael, we didn't force you." "Shut up," I shouted. "All of you shut up. You watched me sacrifice everything. And you let me do it. You manipulated me. For what? A house? A few $1,000s? Or was it just for the thrill of controlling me? Tether's face drained of color. She opened her mouth to speak, but Emily silenced her with a sharp look. Enough, Emily said, her voice calm but icy. You think this is about money? About control? No, Michael. This is about reality. You live in your little world of routines, of rituals, of false devotion. You cling to an image of love because you are afraid of the truth. The truth is, I am not what you want me to be, and you never will be. I staggered back, my hands shaking. You're sick. This is sick. To toy with someone's life for 6 years? She laughed softly, a sound that sent chills down my spine. Sick? No. Smart, careful, calculated. I gave you exactly what you needed to see. I gave everyone the story they wanted. You fell for it because you wanted to. My knees felt weak. 6 years, gone. Every bath, every meal, every whispered word, all a lie. The detectives interjected gently. Michael, we need to process this legally. We have evidence of fraud, identity deception, and financial manipulation. You should step back and let us handle it. I ignored them. And you, I said, turning back to Emily, you never once considered how this would hurt me, how I would feel, living a lie. Emily's gaze softened slightly, but not in remorse, in calculation. I considered it, every day. That's why I let it continue. You were happier believing in me than knowing the truth. You needed this lie more than I needed your devotion. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. The truth was a hammer, pounding through my chest. Then Emily stepped forward, slowly closing the space between us. You should thank me, Michael. You finally have your freedom. No more waking up to care for a body that doesn't need you. No more sacrifice. You are free now. Free. The word echoed hollowly in my mind. Free from what? Free from love? Free from hope? Or free from the illusion that had kept me tethered to a life of lies? Linda tried to step between us. Michael, please. Don't, I said, my voice low and dangerous. I don't need your explanations. I don't need apologies. You've done enough. You've taken enough. David, whether the opportunist finally seemed shaken. Michael, Emily, we can fix this. Legally, we can... I cut him off. No, nothing can fix this. Nothing can bring back 6 years of my life. You all knew exactly what you were doing. For the first time, Emily's mask faltered. There was a flicker of emotion. Pride? Regret? I couldn't tell. But it didn't last. She regained her composure, smirking faintly, as if she had won some invisible game. The police moved in, placing gentle but firm hands on David and Emily, guiding them toward the car. Emily didn't resist. She didn't argue. She walked calmly, eyes never leaving mine, as though she were studying me one last time. You should remember this, she said softly. You were the perfect fool. And now, the story is yours to tell. Through them go, my chest heaving, my mind reeling. 6 years of love, devotion, and sacrifice had been a lie. And yet, part of me still ached for her, for the woman I thought I knew. I collapsed into the chair, staring at the empty apartment. The silence was deafening. I had survived the confrontation, but I hadn't survived the truth. That night, I went through the apartment alone, searching for anything I had missed. Hidden safes, secret letters, photographs, everything confirmed what I already knew. Emily's life had been carefully constructed in parallel to mine. Every gesture, every smile, every blink of her eyes had been calculated to maintain the illusion. I realized then that I had loved a ghost, a carefully curated version of a woman who never existed. And the real Emily, the one standing free and alive outside, was someone I might never understand. I sat on the floor, staring at our wedding photo. The woman smiling back at me was gone, replaced by a stranger I had thought I knew. In the silence, I promised myself one thing. I would uncover every secret, every lie, every hidden truth. Because now, it wasn't just about betrayal. It was about survival. and I had to know how deep her deception really went. The apartment was silent, suffocating in its emptiness. For 6 years, I had lived in a world dictated by the rhythms of another person, her breaths, her blinks, her needs. Now, for the first time, that world was gone. The hospital bed, the carefully arranged bath supplies, the piles of medical papers, all reminders of a life that had been a lie, sat like cold monuments around the living room. I collapsed into the armchair I had spent so many sleepless nights in, my hands trembling as I tried to process the chaos of the past week. Emily, the woman I had loved, worshipped, and cared for with every fiber of my being, was gone. And yet, I could still feel her presence in the apartment, in the smell of her soap, in the echo of her laughter that had never really existed. The legal fallout, the police and detectives had done their work efficiently, gathering evidence of Emily's deception, Linda's complicity, and David's schemes. Identity fraud, financial manipulation, and conspiracy charges were filed. Emily had cooperated just enough to make the case airtight, revealing her secret life, her hidden accounts, and the deliberate ways she had kept me in the dark. But the legal victories felt hollow. The prosecutors assured me that restitution could be sought, that the stolen money might be recovered, and that justice would be served. Yet, as I stared at the mountain of documents, charts, and bank statements, I realized that no law could return the 6 years of my life stolen by deception. No court could undo the psychological toll, the loss of trust, the betrayal so deep it reached my bones. The media caught wind of the case quickly. The story of a man caring for a supposedly paralyzed wife for 6 years, only to discover she had been faking it, went viral. Headlines screamed, "Vega deception, 6 years of lies. Paralyzed wife or master manipulator. Terrorism caregiver's devotion exploited in shocking family fraud." Profitability, neighbors whispered, acquaintances stared, and social media became a battlefield of sympathy, outrage, and speculation. I didn't care about any of it. The public's judgment, their fascination with my suffering, was meaningless compared to the quiet devastation inside me. Rebuilding the self. In the weeks that followed, I faced a paradoxical mix of relief and grief. Relief, because I was no longer bound by 6 years of lies, no longer tethered to a woman who had manipulated me with the precision of a predator. Grief, because I had loved her, truly, deeply, and that love had been weaponized against me. The first nights without the routine were unbearable. I would wake, expecting to hear the faint wheeze of her breath, expecting to prepare her bath, expecting the ritual that had defined my life. And each time, I realized she wasn't there. She hadn't been there, and I had been lying to myself in every way that mattered. Shipping refunds slowly, reluctantly, I spent hours walking through the apartment, cataloging every memory, every moment of the past 6 years, trying to separate truth from illusion. I destroyed some items, old syringes, medical charts, notes I had kept for her care, but preserved others. Photographs of us before the accident, letters, and wedding mementos. They were reminders of the life that had once been real, before it became a stage for deception. I also recording my story. At first, it was a way to document my experience for legal purposes. Then it became something else, a confession, a warning, a therapy of sorts. I uploaded videos to a small channel, sharing my 6-year ordeal, the lies, the manipulation, the betrayal, and the impossible love I had held on to. The response was overwhelming. People from around the world messaged me, sharing their own stories of deception, betrayal, and caregiving. Some offered support, some offered pity, but all reminded me that I wasn't entirely alone in my suffering. The emotional reckoning, disproportionately. One of the hardest parts of the aftermath was confronting my emotions. For weeks, I oscillated between anger, sorrow, disbelief, and a strange lingering affection for Emily. It was irrational, but love had a stubborn way of persisting even when exposed to betrayal. I had to teach myself to feel again, to distinguish between the love I had felt for the woman she pretended to be and the revulsion I felt for the reality of her actions. Therapy became essential. I met with a counselor who specialized in trauma and long-term caregiving stress. She helped me understand that what I had experienced was not just betrayal, but a form of psychological manipulation that left lasting scars. We worked through the guilt I carried for not realizing the truth sooner, the anger I had toward Emily and her family, and the profound sense of disorientation that followed the revelation. Gradually, I began to recognize my own resilience. I had survived 6 years of physical, emotional, and mental strain. I had faced betrayal of the deepest kind, and while I was fractured, I was not broken. The lingering questions. Dismantle. Even as I tried to rebuild, questions haunted me. Why had Emily chosen me? Was it merely for the convenience of a devoted caregiver, or had she truly wanted my love in some distorted way? How long had Linda and David known the truth, and why had they allowed it to continue? I replayed conversations in my mind, searching for clues I had missed. Every blink, every hesitant movement, every subtle expression. I wondered whether it had been deliberate signaling or my imagination twisting the truth. The uncertainty gnawed at me, and most of all, I wondered if I had ever truly known Emily. The woman I had married, the woman who had danced, laughed, and breathed life into the world, had become a stranger. The ghost I loved for 6 years had never existed, and the real Emily had left me behind. A quiet freedom. Shuts turned into months, sold the apartment, and moved to a smaller, quieter place, one that I could call my own. I no longer had the hospital bed, the specialized equipment, or the carefully timed routines that had consumed my life. I had space, I had freedom, dismissed, and yet freedom was a double-edged sword. It brought relief, yes, but also emptiness. I missed the structure of my life, the sense of purpose, even though it had been built on lies. I missed the moments of tenderness, the imagined connection with Emily, the illusion of a shared life. Plateau, the emptiness with small things, long walks, journaling, reconnecting with old friends, rediscovering hobbies I had abandoned. I began to volunteer at a local community center, helping other caregivers who were struggling. Helping others brought meaning back into my life in a way that revenge, legal victories, or media attention could not. The last message. Southeastern. One evening, months after the confrontation, I received a small envelope in the mail. No return address. I opened it to find a single note, written in Emily's handwriting. Disproportionate. Michael, you were the perfect fool. I hope you finally see what you wanted to see. Remember me as you choose, but know this. I never needed you. You needed me. Be free. Shall at the note for a long time. Part of me wanted to burn it. Part of me wanted to scream. But instead, I folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer, because she was gone. And I had to live my life without her lies, without her deception, without her control. Xiaomi. Chest reflecting O's El Milad. Still think about those 6 years. Every bath, every whispered word, every blink and response. I realize now that my devotion had been genuine, my love real, but the object of that devotion had been a carefully crafted illusion. And yet, I do not regret loving her. Blindness. I regret the lies. I regret the manipulation. I regret the time lost. But I do not regret myself. I survived. I endured. I learned that love, no matter how true, can be used as a weapon, but also that resilience can rise from betrayal. The apartment is quiet now. The hospital bed is gone. The photos remain. The journal remains. And my story remains. I am Michael Vega. I loved. I lost. I was deceived. And now, I am free.